And one of the places I wandered was into the AIM house in Oakland, the American Indian Movement house. And it turned out the time I got here was at the same time that the Indian movement, having an opening, kind of emulating the Panthers in a way. They'd open themselves up to white folks in a way that they hadn't been so much before. And they were looking for folks on the non-Indian side, especially white folks who understood the environmental stuff. So I think that was kind of the hook in there. I wandered into the AIM house. My radar was open to who's the hardcore urban folks here, and I met some hardcore urban Navajo folks. They were city Indians, but who still were from the res. And we're at a point where there was folks from Navajo. Part of how they saw their work was to educate non-Indian folks as to what's going on. At that point it was Burnham. There was a coal mine out there. There was power plants trying to happen. So they just said, why don't you guys, some of us non-Indian folks, I was working with folks from the hog farm and other non-Indian folks, white folks, why don't you help us organize and educate your people, your society about Burnham? And then Big Mountain was coming up then too. So together with the hog farm folks and that, we set up what was called the Burnham Big Mountain Support Group. There was already one in Albuquerque. One of the main folks there was Mark Rudd, coming out of SDS. Lisa Law was over in Santa Fe. And I was working with folks around here, Goose from the hog farm and other folks, and we set up Burnham Big Mountain Support Group here. For a number of years, its mailing address was my mailbox. Out in the front yard had a big sign on it. Roberta was so warm, and it was Roberta's invitation. I got a call from Danny. It had to do with the bulldozers are coming out in about 2 weeks for whatever, and Danny said, my mom wants you to round up 3 or 4 people and come on down here. And it was like I hadn't gotten that. Before it always been round up a whole lot of people. We have these big gatherings there. And that played out a long time. We got down there, we spent days hanging around. They did some ceremony over us to get us all in the right place to go out and confront the bulldozers, and it all came down on exactly the right day. And we all got indicted, and there was a trial that was going to happen and all of that, which was fascinating over the course of from January, February into March, with a really fairly dramatic scene in the courtroom where they're getting ready to, the feds are bringing their case to really, they wanted to put us all away for 5 years for crossing state lines to, it was federal crime. It turned out what we did, which was one of the most grounded things we done, I mean, literally at the request of the elders, and then prep with ceremony among the elders and hand tremblers and folks like that, caused so much confusion among the non-Indian movement and among the Indian movement itself. The theme in the air for us political lefty folks was called solidarity. And solidarity meant there's real homegrown revolutionary stuff going on, whether it's in Nicaragua, El Salvador, or at Big Mountain. Solidarity means that you non-folks, especially you Anglo folks, it's time you took responsibility for dealing with your government's role in screwing this up. So that's how we understood our Big Mountain work was, it's not time for us to go be Indians or El Salvadorians or Nicaraguans. It's time for us to challenge our own government to get right with these people we're screwing over. You, go deal with your government and get them off our back. So it was a clean piece of work. Not that we did it. The expression we used, you knew it back then, was to take your direction from the elders, from the indigenous leadership. Again, whether it's in Nicaragua, El Salvador, or Big Mountain. And it helped that there was these hard-ass movement folks in AIM. They put out a pretty militant message. You will respect our elders and our people, or you're not welcome here. You know, the people down there on the land at the time, there were armed confrontations going on and off all the time. Our role wasn't to go join them, but was to educate our society, our culture, as to what that's about. I don't know, it's hard to look back at it, because we didn't get done what we wanted to do.